Well done, Nadine. Really smashed the old order all the self-help books in the world but never actually read them technique. Genius. Probably would have helped with next week's presentation. Learning courses on LinkedIn. Might be useful. Okay, Mrs. Presenter. Tell me your secrets.
It's super important to do your audience research.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of How to Reboot Your Career in Midlife with LinkedIn. My name is Victoria Lambert, and I'm the Senior Commissioning Editor at the Telegraph. This session is how to set up a small business in a pandemic. And so over the next 45 minutes, I will be talking to a selection of experts about all things startup. Last June saw a record-breaking rise in small businesses in what is being dubbed the COVID economy. And so tonight we'll be offering some guidance on how you too can join this boom and discuss the possible pitfalls and advantages. I would now like to welcome my first guest, Adam Freeman. Adam is a serial entrepreneur selling his first business in his early 20s. He has built and is the current CEO for one of the UK's most successful short-term finance providers, and more recently has created Maski, which has become the leading manufacturer and provider of fashionable face masks. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
Also joining me for tonight's session is Rebecca Byrne-Callender. Bex is the former enterprise editor of the Daily and Sunday Telegraph and author of the Daily Telegraph Guide to Investing. A business and economics journalist, she specialises in small business and entrepreneurship and is the host of Sound Advice, Get Year One in Business Right, a podcast about starting up and growing your business. Hi, Bex.
Hiya.
Good to see everybody. And hello to everyone at home. I can see we've got lots and lots of people right now. So hello, everybody. We're going to start with some questions around planning your business and startups. So the first question, I'll start with you, Adam. Does a roadmap to starting and running a small business exist?
Good question. I don't think there's a roadmap that exists. Kind of you follow it as a guide every kind of step of the way. But you do need some kind of map to build yourself when you're starting a business on kind of how to get to A to B and each step of the way. But I wouldn't say there's anything out there that's kind of set in stone on ways to do it, because there's so many different avenues to explore and things to do. So, yeah.
And Bex, would you add to that?
Well, I suppose the only thing that's for certain in your roadmap is you either have to create a limited company, which means paying your 12 quid at Companies House, or you have to register for self-assessment as a sole trader. Those are the only kind of mandated things that have to happen in order to have a functioning business, that and a business bank account. But then after that, things have changed so dramatically. Maybe 5-10 years ago, people would have said you have to have a website. You have to be able to sell through a website. And now you see so many entrepreneurs selling through Instagram, for example. They don't even have a website, and yet they've got really, really successful businesses. So I think the rule book has definitely been thrown out in a lot of ways. And the traditional roadmap doesn't really exist anymore, as Adam said.
Well, that's quite interesting. That comes back to another question that one of a reader submitted in advance, which was, how do you make the leap from idea to reality? Or is it just a case of doing it? Bex, could you?
Yeah, sure. Happy to take that. So I think to make the leap from idea to reality, you have to have a plan, because we all come up with great business ideas all the time. And the key isn't having the idea, it's executing on the idea. So you have to be able to plan out every process you're going to follow in order to get your first customer, build a brand, work out your pricing. And that has to be worked out carefully in advance, ideally. I mean, obviously, if you're a one-man band and you are setting up a bakery because you love baking, you're baking from home, then you can probably do things a little bit more ad hoc. But if you want to build a business with any sort of scale, if you ever want to employ anyone, if you want to reach any sort of ambitious goal, it helps to have a plan in place to get you there.
Adam, that's what Bex says. It's very interesting, because what she said was, we all have lots of ideas. How do you sift? I mean, I'm always coming with crazy ideas for new businesses, but I don't know that I'd get any further with them. How can you tell it's a good one?
For me personally, I also have a lot of ideas. I think a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and I actually speak to a lot of people that say, I've got this idea, I want to do this business, I want to do this venture. And I think when you ended that, just do it. I think, it sounds easier said than done, but I write a lot of stuff down. I think that's probably for me the best starting point. So if you have an idea in your head and you're toying with it, write it down. And start to research the idea. Some ideas will be better than other ideas. But I think if you start with the general point, like what is it you want to achieve? I think look at the marketplace. I always look at what other people are doing as well. Because there's no point coming into like a first business, or if you're new to starting a business with something that's oversaturated. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'd say you'd probably need to be a bit more experienced to do that because it's a lot more challenging. But I think if you have the idea, write it down, look at what's out there and see how you can do it better, and why you actually want to enter that marketplace. And then you'll see the more stuff you write down will lead to other questions, other ideas. And, after you've got to the point where, yes, I like this idea, this is something I want to do, just do it. Just find the way to start it. Speak to people that are already in business. There's a lot of forums out there to get advice. When Beck said before about getting a limited company, it sounds like an easy thing to do, but some people are quite scared of doing that. Find out how to set up a limited company, why you need a limited company, and just take it one stage at a time. You don't have to get your idea done within a week or 2 weeks. You can get it done over a month, 2-3 month period, and just set goals for yourself, how you're going to get the idea out there.
That sounds a bit like doing a sort of big mind map, like a kind of, start with a big picture piece of paper and stick it here and stick it there. And have you ever done that?
It is like that. But I think before you've got to balance your time, your availability of time against what you want to do as well. And we all have a lot of our time's restricted. So you've got to make the time, and as you come up with other ideas, as you do your research, as you look into things, it kind of leads you into other evidence. And sometimes some of my ideas I've cut off straight away because I've gone and I said, no, this isn't going to work. And then you don't have to think about the idea anymore because you can just cut it straight off. I'd say just start the process of writing things down, for sure.
If I have some ideas for business, how do you develop the ideas to start a business in terms of plans, funding, and types of company? And saying that, I can see, I think it's Mary Moore has said, yours is a tax question. Actually, Mary, we're going to come back to you. So let's just stick with this for now. You want to start your business. You want to think about plans, funding, and type of company. Well, Bex, first of all, type of company. What company do you want to do with a small business? Do you have to have a company?
You don't have to have a company. You can be a sole trader. The only thing is, if you are a sole trader, then you are personally liable to pay that tax. So if you have a turnover of 100 grand in the year, that comes into your personal bank account, and you'll have to pay whatever the tax rate. That could be up to £40,000 on those earnings. If you have a limited company, all the revenue goes into the limited company, into the business bank account, and you pay yourself a salary and you pay yourself dividends. But the tax is a lot more favorable in that structure for the person who owns the business. You don't end up paying everything out as income tax, national insurance contributions. Income tax, not NICs. It's a lot more favorable. There are other structures to consider. So if you have a social enterprise idea or a charity idea, you might want to create it's got a private company limited by guarantee, which means that you aren't liable. If something goes wrong, if the business goes pop, then you won't have to pay out. And there's also a community interest company, which is another form of sort of social enterprise style business. But those are very much in the kind of third sector world. If you are starting a traditional for-profit company, you're looking more at limited company, sole trader, or possibly limited liability partnership if you're a group of lawyers, say. But those are your options.
And so, Adam, in terms of funding, where can you go for funding to begin with? Do you have to start with your own pot of money?
It depends on the business you want to do and what your goals are and you want to achieve. I think the best way to do it is kind of, you've done your ideas, you've got a concept of what you want to do. And there's various ways to go. You can go out there on a fundraising where you'd have to put together some kind of actual investment deck about your idea, your pitch, the prospects and marketplace, your sales, and you could spend time doing that and go out there and raise some capital to actually, maybe 50, 100, £250,000. But I'd say if you're new to businesses and you're not sure what you're actually going to be doing or how it works, I would say, like Beck said before, you'd get a limited company, get the name of the limited company. That already gives you a protection level. If things do go wrong, you're not always personally liable for that. And then from the point of having a limited company, I would say it depends what you're doing. You need a website. You'll need some marketing. And I would say just look at your idea. What's going to keep you going for maybe 3 to 6 months? And then 3 to 6, I'd say have enough money to cover your income for 6 months. So you get the idea going, you can kind of live off your savings. And it's not so much what you're put into your company, but it's more so the money you can go without living for that period of time if you're fully focused on that business. And then you'll see how the business is doing. And I wouldn't go out there and say, oh, I've got £10,000. I'm going to go and do an AdWords campaign and advertise on YouTube and everywhere else, because you don't know if the business is going to work. And at the same time, you don't want to scale too quickly if you're somebody on your own. So I'd very slowly tread water, just to kind of get the feel of it, and just spend money on necessary items you need to get the message out there. Maybe people can do some posts on social media for you to keep the marketing costs low. And yeah, I would look at it not as an investment in the business, but what you can afford to live without for a period you're going to trial your new company for, if that makes sense.
I can see some questions have come up already. Catherine has asked, I'm a sole trader or will be. I haven't yet declared myself as a sole trader, as I'm not actually trading. Am I right in thinking I don't have to declare until I earn over a certain amount of money?
I'm not positive on this. I think you have a certain grace period, but you will have to pay tax on all the earnings you make as a sole trader. So it almost doesn't really matter when you declare it, because you'll have to pay it all anyway. So I think you might have a grace period. You might be able to trade for a few months and then register for self-assessment. But having been an employee of a newspaper and then done some freelance and then not registered for self-assessment for that freelance income and then been clobbered with an enormous fine a year later, I would recommend you get on that straight away.
And what about a couple of people have talked about accountancy fees, because again, if you haven't had your own business before, you probably haven't needed an accountant. Should you get an accountant straight away? And what sort of fees are we talking? I think Penny has said here that she pays her accountant £500 for company accounts. Is that a good rate? I mean, should you be thinking of £1,000? What's the sort of going rate for a small business startup?
Is that to me?
Sorry, yes. I don't know.
I would say that a good accountant is worth their weight in gold, always. Not only because it frees you up from doing all that bureaucratic, nightmarish stuff that takes you away from actually making money in your business, but also because they always find those little cost saving, like those tax savings that you wouldn't necessarily have the time or inclination to find yourself. And I'm not just talking about looking at all expenses that you might incur as a business that you might forget, like your water bill and your kind of the rates you pay on your house, or your internet, your phone bill, your stationery, your new printer that you bought, the nice office chair that you just got to support your spine. All of those things would be expenses, and you might not have the inclination to find that out yourself. Your accountant would. I do think that £500 is a pretty good rate to do company accounts. The only other point I'd make about accountants is have a conversation up front about how they charge, because some accountants will charge you a flat fee and do all of this stuff for you, which is great. And they will include in that the calls that you make to them desperate right before the filing deadline, being, oh, can I put this on my tax return? How do I do this? Is my pension included? Etc., etc. Other accountancy firms, will charge you every time you pick up the phone, every time you send an email, and can clobber you with these enormous fees. So I would have that conversation up front when you're looking at accountants to make sure that they're not the latter group.
Yeah. I have to say, a good relationship is just, I mean, my accountant nags me when he thinks I'm paying too much for broadband. And it's the sort of thing I would probably let go because I'm just, I can't deal with it. And he won't let it go. So I think there's all those little ways that they can really help, actually. Our next question, and I'll take this to you, Adam. This is about business plans, because we said you don't have we're not talking about roadmap. This is a business plan. Every business has to have a business plan, don't they? Do you have to stick to it like glue, or can you go off piste occasionally?
Definitely, you definitely can't stick to it like glue, because things change. No matter how good the business plan is and how you've set it out, from getting to here to there, you know, things move very quickly with technology, marketing, everything. So to follow it to a T, I think would be near on impossible. But I think a plan, like I said before, with the ideas, it's kind of more of a I'd say the business plan is more of a guide to yourself on what you want to achieve. So by this date, you want to get to here. By this date, you want to get to this point. You know, I've seen business play, you know, I've seen a lot of business plans where someone will come to me with an idea and they say, I'm raising money and we're going to do this many sales and we're going to do this. How do you know? You don't. Yeah. You know, this is the size of the marketplace. It's £1 billion marketplace and we're going to get a 4% market share. It's absolutely impossible that you would know that just from a piece of paper. And the other thing you'll find as well, especially as you get more new to business and you're coming into starting your own thing, is things will change. So you'll start over here, and as you develop phase 1, phase 2 of what you planned, you'll be like, this is a lot more exciting than what I actually planned down here. So I'm going to move in this direction. And by the end of the actual plan, you'll be somewhere completely different to which you originally started to get to. So I would say the business plan is more of the plan around your time, what you want to achieve, and set deadlines and goals for that. But the plan about what the business is going to do, I don't have ever come across a business plan that's finished off where it started. So yeah, I think it'll be very difficult to follow that plan to a T for sure.
Should you update your business plan? Should you come back to it?
It updates itself. So your plan is the plan before you commence what you want to do. And I think if you look at the plan about the goals and what you want to achieve, you know, that will very much help you get there for your own targets. But the plan on what the business is going to achieve won't necessarily work, because you've never done this before. You don't know what way it's going to go, and things change. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, for a guide for yourself, and it's always good looking back at the plan in the future to what you wanted to achieve, just to see where you've ended up at this point, and if there's anything you missed out that you should do now and what have you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I hope that makes sense.
I want to talk a bit about social media, because I think that's all changing quite fast for everybody. Bex, how can you work out which type of social media you should use as a small business? Managing one channel can be really time consuming and take you away from doing business, a bit like accountancy. Should you get somebody in to do your social media for you? Can your teenager do it for you? Give us some tips on social media.
It's such a great question. And you're so right that social media can be so time consuming, especially if you're working on a platform like YouTube where you're having to create a video, there's editing involved. You can't just dash up a post. I would say that any business person needs to have some sort of social presence, but the way to pick the media that's right for you is to look at the key demographics who are on that media, look where the people you want to sell to are congregating, and just make sure you focus your efforts on whatever that platform is, whether it's Instagram, or if you want a slightly older generation like myself, we're still on Facebook, the dinosaurs that we are, so that's still a popular channel if you want to get to sort of the over 35s. But then there's also all these new channels all the time. So I saw the other day that TikTok has 25 billion views of the hashtag small business, and it's just like it's just like a gold rush for businesses looking to win fans on TikTok. So I think that you also have to be cognizant of new trends. don't get swept away with them, but just be aware that they're happening and that they might be worthy of your time. And no, I don't think you should get a teenager to do your social media. I think your personal brand is so important, and an erroneous tweet can break a reputation that you've spent years to build in just a few seconds. And I don't think that can be entrusted to someone who is not either a professional, but then professionals are expensive, or yourself, because then you've only got yourself to blame. So that's my very quick answer to a very complicated question.
Well, I think we've got a question on the side here. Social media, how can I find out where is my target group?
Well, I think if you look online and if you Google, which social media platform do mums spend most time on, or whatever your target group is, just figure out who your target customer is. I met an entrepreneur once who named his, it was like Molly and Derek, and they were homeowners in their late 50s, and he kind of had this picture of them. And that meant when he was looking to target them, he could ask very specific questions when he was kind of Googling to see where those people hang out. And I think he found some interesting stuff, that they were into fishing, so he ended up advertising in fishing magazines. This is a long time ago. But that's the way to do it, is to go data first and think, okay, who am I trying to get to? Where do they hang out? Where do they congregate? Let me ask those questions of those target audience members as well. So if you have customers exist like already, ask them, where would you like to see my brand? Where would you most like me to put my giveaway? Or where would you most like to tell me about how I'm doing as a business? And see, they'll tell you.
Adam, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, just that they're starting out. Obviously, you're starting a business. You're an accountant, you're receptionist, you're emailer, customer support, you're everything. So to take on that burden is an extra task. Just a couple of things to add to that. For me, names and brands are really important. Whatever businesses I've done, I do so much research on the name and the brand. I make sure the domain name's available. And I would also make sure the social media channels are available. So when you get your idea and you're writing everything down, part of that idea is come up with a name, and come up with a name quite quickly, and see if you've got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, maybe Clubhouse, to try and get a similar branded name on each social media account. It makes marketing a lot more easier. It's a lot more easier to manage, and people find you a lot easier, and try and tie that in with your domain name. So I'd say names are very important that you come up with. Try and be unique, that nobody else has, so that you can get it on each channel. And the second thing I was going to add to that is, when you start out, there's apps out there that can post to multiple channels. So if you've got Twitter, if you've got the 5 Instagram channels, instead of posting to Twitter, posting to Facebook, you can actually just do one post that will put it against all the platforms at the same time. And it can also manage the internal communications, because response to customers is probably, customer service is one of the most important things. So if it's all coming in the same place, you can reply to the message. You don't have to log into each app on your browser or your mobile phone. You drive yourself mad. I would say 3 to 6 months into it, when you get some revenue coming in, for £400 or £500, you could probably get a really good agency to take that over for you. You'd give them a briefing about your business, a concept, what you're trying to achieve, and they would take that over for you. But I would say, if you can persevere for 3 to 6 months whilst you're building it, to keep that cost down, as soon as you can afford someone to manage your social media, I would certainly recommend that, because it's a burden less you have to worry about, and you can just focus on the other things of the business. But obviously, never take your eye off the ball. Like, you need to look at every element of your business and look what posts. Don't just let them post and get on with it. Still manage it and make sure you're happy with it and have some kind of approval over it. But yeah, I'd certainly get a third party to do it as soon as you can afford to do that, as soon as you've got a good income coming in.
And it's worth looking at the analytics as well, isn't it? Because, you can do pretty basic analytics on you just using your normal Twitter account. That just tells you so much about when your customers are actually interested in hearing from you. What sort of things attract them? Do they like, funny? Do they like serious? Do they like pictures? So I think with any kind of analytics, you've got to build time in for that.
Yeah, for sure. And analytics, I think that's one of my favorite things about the companies I get involved with and start is just watching the businesses kind of grow from the visitors, and the conversion's really important. So conversion's a major important factor of your business. So we've got so much information at our fingertips today. When you launch your website, you might be one day, oh, this is amazing, I got 10 sales of this t-shirt that I'm selling. You might think that's amazing, I got 10 sales, but you had 10,000 visitors to your site. That's not very good. So you can't just say, oh, this is what I'm selling, it's fantastic. You need to look at where these people coming from and how many people are coming there and what is that conversion rate. And I'd set yourself a target. So if you come in at a 0.5% target rate, for example, so every 100 visitors you sell, say, one item, then you say, I'm going to improve that to 2 items from 100 people, and then 3 items, and spend time maximizing your converting traffic from who's seeing your posts, visiting your website, to actually transacting with you. When you get that, then it's worth spending money and building on bringing. There's no point bringing people to you if you're converting low. Get the conversions as high as you can, and then start bringing people to you, and then start working on increasing them. That's a really important factor, and I love that analytical side of businesses, just to see how to improve those numbers.
Yeah,
there's so much data out there. It's
well, exactly. So you can't say that it's not there. We know it is there now.
Yeah.
And Bex, about 10 years ago, we'd have started all this with a blog. Do we bother to blog anymore? Are blogs worthwhile, or are they just a complete waste of time?
I really wish I had a straightforward answer to this, but I'm actually completely torn, because I think that depending on the kind of business you run, blogs can be really powerful. So I have a friend who's a web developer, and she figured out this really nifty way of embedding a signature in an email so that it looks the same no matter what device you open it in, no matter where it's being viewed. And she wrote a blog about this, and she published it on Medium, and it created this like deluge of interest, and people were just so excited because she'd solved this problem, but also it created work opportunities for her because she was then seen as being a real expert in her field. I'm not sure that just blogging about nonsense, or what you've done on your holidays or anything, I don't think that adds any value to anyone. But I think really, really getting what your audience wants to hear just bang on and serving them something unique in a blog format where it's easy to digest and well written, I think it can still be really powerful.
The same question, is it worth doing newsletters? Because I know newsletters seem to be quite big, but I have to be honest, I don't read them. I get them and I sort of...
Well, surprisingly, sorry, go on.
No, you go on, Bex, that's fine.
Well, I saw surprisingly that actually email is one of the biggest and most powerful marketing tools. Like, a lot of people click through emails, and I feel like a lot of mine go into my promotions folder on my Gmail. I never open them, but I think a lot of people really do. But it's very hard to write exactly the right kind of eye-catching subject line and have the right content. But once you get that right, you can see tremendous results. But I'm sure Adam will know more about this than me, because I'm sure he's master of the newsletter.
Adam, are you king newsletter?
Yeah, I think it's important to stay in contact with your customers, or non-customers as well, just to keep them updated. Again, it very much comes down to the product and the service that you're offering. But I think, if people have subscribed to a newsletter, it's because they want to know, they want to know what you're doing when you're doing it. So I think, again, email's free for starting a business. I say email's free, probably up to like 2,500 to 5,000 emails you could probably get on platforms for free. And it's a great way to communicate at no cost to yourself. So yeah, I'd say it would come down to time. If you can find the time, I wouldn't put it at the forefront of starting the business. Obviously, you'll have no subscribers at the beginning, but maybe the aim could be to, if people aren't transacting, get them to sign up to the newsletter. Then you can bring them in, and that comes back to the original conversion number I said before. Where your conversion at this from the visitors, you bring back those visitors from the past and you can convert them. So yeah, you've got nothing to lose from it, but I wouldn't put it at the beginning of your business model. I'd put it probably halfway, in a few weeks, months, as people subscribe as time goes on, for sure.
Now I've got a question. I'm going to put this to you, Adam. I've literally no idea what this is. Somebody's asked us, is drop shipping a viable option for first-time small business owners? What are the risks and pitfalls, and what are tax implications? What is drop shipping?
Okay, so drop shipping would be me selling a product that I don't physically have. So I could have a distribution center in anyway in Leeds. I've got a distribution center in Leeds, not me, but there is one there that manufacture weights. They manufacture weights, and they will take an order and then send it to the customer. What I'll do is I'm kind of the middleman. So my website sells weights, and you come and buy a weight from my website. That order will go to Leeds, and Leeds will distribute it to the customer. So they're doing the drop shipping and fulfillment for you. So in theory, I have no asset as such, no product, no stock, but I'm a marketing person. So I use my skills to market my website selling weights to bring people to it. And they might charge me £15 for the weights, and I've just sold them for £30. So I'd make a £15 profit, and they're doing that kind of the work for you to send it to somewhere else. So it's a feasible business. A lot of people do that with Amazon. A lot of people will buy a product from China, have it shipped directly to Amazon, and then Amazon would do all the fulfillment. A lot of people do that. It's probably a flat trend now, probably declining slightly, but I'd say over the last 2 or 3 years prior, it was definitely on the up. But for me, that's quite a risky business to do. And I'd say if you're going to do that, I would never go into it with a lot of money to start with. I would probably, and when I say a lot of money, I wouldn't spend £10,000-20,000 buying a product, shipping it here, and then just hoping for the best. I'd probably tread carefully. I'd probably say I'm going to invest £1,000 or £500, what I could afford to lose. So I would do on the premise that this might be a massive mistake, but one I would learn from. I would buy a product for £1,000. It would take 30 to 45 days to get to maybe Amazon. And then I would make the Amazon adverts to sell it and then see what happens, and slowly build it up. But I know a lot of people that have lost some money doing that option. The tax implications, I wouldn't be able to advise on. I guess it depends where you're getting the stock from, and what have you. I guess you would pay corporation tax on your profits from cost to sale, but I wouldn't be able to offer more than that on the tax side of it.
Yeah. Going on to another question, what legislation should we ensure we're clued up on, no matter what type of business? So, Bex, this is probably for you. What do you think people should really make sure they know or they're on top of?
Well, there was actually a comment about this one already, which is Gdpr, which is making sure you're compliant with all the regulations about how you keep hold of people's personal data. So there is a lot of resource now out there about being GDPR compliant. So there's really no excuse anymore, because you just have to look it up. You can even look up your industry and just see how it is that you're supposed to hold data, what you're supposed to do with data that you are no longer sure it's secure. It's just about just not letting people's email addresses, their home addresses get out into the wild, especially in this era of like hackers everywhere. So we just have to be a lot more careful. And the other one was also mentioned earlier, which is the IR35, which is basically HMRC is trying to cut down on any form of tax avoidance, whereby someone is actually an employee of a company. They don't work for anyone else. They don't have a disparate income from all these different places. But for tax implications, they've decided to be a kind of contractor and invoice through a limited company, which means that they only pay corporation tax instead of income tax. And so that's been all changed in the last few months. But if you are a consultant and you don't just work for one company, then you should be fine. But if you are a consultant and you work for a single company over a long period of time, it's definitely worth speaking to an accountant and getting some advice, because you could end up paying out 25% more in terms of tax if you are found to be on the wrong side of the line.
Wow, that's a lot. That is definitely worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Is there any other law that we need to be sure of?
It depends on the sector. I think, for example, if you was going into the finance sector, and you was maybe giving financial advice, or you was kind of an affiliate for a financial firm, what have you, you'd need to be regulated by the FCA probably. I think that would come down to the very beginning part where you're writing your ideas. Once you know the direction, I would go online, look for kind of regulation and what have you. And on the flip side of that, a lot of sectors have associations which are quite good as well. So look around online for different associations that are part of the sector you get involved with. And you can get quite a lot of, you coming back to the newsletters, the associations love a newsletter. You'll probably get one every day of what's going on in your sector and what have you. So I would definitely do your research to make sure you have, I think ICO, GDPR, Beck said, is probably the most important one to start with. But after that, I'd just do your research online for sure.
Is it worth joining your local chamber of commerce? Okay.
Well, I know. So I think sometimes that it depends how active your local chamber of commerce is. It's completely different depending on where you live in the country. So I would ask around, see how useful they are, how much they actually do on behalf of the people who get in touch asking for advice or support. But I mean, similarly to what Adam said, you look at things like the FSB, the Federation of Small Businesses. Yeah. That's a great place to go. That's the national resource. Business in the Community, again, that's also a great national resource. It's a charity. It's there to support you in business. So that's probably where I go. Those two places maybe before the local chamber of commerce, which used to be, back in the Business Link days, you'd have your chamber of commerce. They were really reliable sources of support, but today it's patchy.
Okay. Any tips repricing? Because one of our readers says they always undersell themselves. And I think, that's such a tough thing to get right.
Yeah. Sorry, Bex, did you want that or?
No, go for it.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. I think it is scary doing your first venture. I can see that being quite scary, and you might think, I want a market share, I'm going to come in at a low price. I think the easiest way to answer that is it's always easier to bring your price down than it is to put your price up. And again, analytics are really important. So if you've got a website selling a product or a service, look at who's coming to your website, look how they found your website, and investigate why they're there through analytics. And then I would start at a high price and then see how that converts against the visitors that are coming, and then maybe lower the price a bit and a bit more. And you could have a price from £100 to £10. And if it's converting the same at £10 and £100, keep it £100. There's no point coming down to £10. No. So again, the price, I wouldn't undervalue yourself. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I think don't be too expensive, but be nearer the higher end to start with, and work on the conversion of what you're offering from people that's seeing what you're doing, and find the ultimate place to be. From just because you set a price, there's nothing in your plan that will say, I'm going to keep this price for the next 12 months or 24 months. Don't write that in your business plan. Just have an idea of what you're going to try. It's trial and error, I'd say.
Can I add to that, Victoria?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Which is that to work out, first of all, how much you need to make to stay in business. So work out your cost of customer acquisition. How much is your stock cost or your basic business expenses? And then work out how much you need to make per sale to stay in business. So at least you cover all your costs. And if you're paying yourself a salary, how much you have to cover your salary. And then you've got a baseline, and on that you can add a margin. And then if you're looking to sell in a high volume, you can afford to have a lower margin. But if you're only selling a few, you want a high margin. You want to be looking at 25, 50, 75%. So sometimes it can help if you look at the data first and then work out your pricing from there.
I've just seen online, Maxwell has said, are there preferably free online courses run for people like me who've avoided Twitter today? I think you're talking about social media there, Maxwell. I guess that's a general question. Is it easy to find online business courses or anything that can help you, any resources online? Is there anywhere to go for that kind of resource? Alan?
Is there any, yeah, everything's online. I mean, you can find anything online. It's just kind of how to look for it. I think it'll be difficult to go online and find a business plan or something just to suit you for what you want to do. I think the first thing is to figure out what you don't just do something for the sake of it. I think it's so important that you're passionate about what you choose to do. And you enjoy what you're going to do as a business. So as a starting point, I would kind of just search maybe blogs, different websites, just type in what you're interested in, what your business is, and basically how to do it. And you know, there will definitely be something online for all sectors and everything. And don't take it verbatim, don't do everything they say, but take your own interpretation of it. So what you read, what you see, take your interpretation of it and how you're going to make it your own and what you can learn from it. I don't think Twitter would really give you a lot of stuff. I know you're not on it, Maxwell, but I don't think it would give you a lot of advice anyway. It's just more short comments. But certainly search Google and Bing and what have you to kind of search terms like how do you set up a company? How do you buy from a supplier? How do you get accounts done? You should get responses to that from search.
Do you is it worth going online to look for funding, as in, I mean, grants and loans and that sort of thing? I mean, there were a lot of grants around, I think, you know, supporting businesses during the last 18 months, but are there grants that you can get hold of depending on, say, where you live?
There are loads of grants out there, loads and loads and loads of grants. And I think there is actually, I'm going to look up what it's called. There's a particular search engine where you can basically put in what kind of business you are, how much money you're looking for, and what industry you're in. And it actually will list all the grants that are currently active in your sector. And you can kind of pick a pot of money to kind of throw your hat in the ring for. But what I would also say is that don't underestimate the power of unusual routes to finance. And I spoke to Rashina Shah. She's the founder of Insane Grain, which is a snacking brand. And she put out on Instagram that she was looking for funding. And she raised something like 150 grand from high net worths from one Instagram post. Wow. So you can also be creative. You don't have to go the traditional routes. You can just kind of think a little bit differently. And there are loads of online finance houses. You can usually get kind of approvals on a loan within days these days. But I would just really, really stress you have to read the terms and conditions, look at the interest rates, look at what happens if you can't repay, and don't enter into any arrangements unless you're confident that you can meet those provisions.
I know we're coming towards the end of our session. I can see by the clock because it's going very fast. So I've got one question for both, well, two questions for both of you. First of all, what startup businesses are doing well at the moment? Are there any sectors or areas which seem to be on the rise? And secondly, have you got a piece of advice from your own experiences, that just that one thing you wish someone had said to you? Adam?
So businesses on the rise at the moment. I know toilet rolls done well earlier in the year, but I think a lot of kind of COVID related businesses have done well. A lot of obviously Deliveroo, Just Eat, and what have you. Cryptocurrencies doing very well, but I wouldn't want to refer that to a business, and I wouldn't promote that. I'd say probably some people would look at it as a business or gambling. I guess that's a grey area, but that's done very well over the last 12 months. I think things that have made accessibility to life during restrictions easier seem to be doing really well at the moment.
Joanne has just put out the sex industry is doing very well. Thank you for that. I don't think we're recommending Telegraph readers all do that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I'd say kind of stuff off the back of COVID has done quite well for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think Just Eat and Deliveroo, and obviously the takeaways and the restaurant industries have just flown, done amazing on the takeaway side of things.
And what's the
Yeah.
one tip you've got one tip you're allowed to give now? One last.
Oh, one tip. Never give up. Just you know, you'll hit a brick wall, and you'll get to the point. You know, I think earlier I said if someone's got the name, change it, and what. Just never give up on what you want to do. If you've got get the idea, write it down. You know, there's reasons I would look at why I wouldn't pursue that idea. That's from my experience. I'd never not do that idea from a lack of confidence or belief in myself, just because I know I'm going to be wasting my time. I've been doing this a long time. But if you're new to this and you believe in your idea, just keep going. You'll get to the point where this is really hard, but get over it and get to the next stage and make your idea a reality. Don't let brick walls stop you at all. Just carry on going. So
great advice. Bex, what can you add to that?
The best piece of advice that I wish I could have given myself is whatever you do in business, look for who's making money, who's making the big money, because they need to be your customers. Don't try and go to the people who are struggling, who have profit cycles that are up and down, who have wafer thin margins. So find out who's making the money and make them your target audience.
That's clever. Well, look, thank you both. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Becca, for joining me. And good night from all of us. Good night.
Thank you.